Welcome back to the 9 Innings Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson, founder and CEO of 99 Capital Group. Thank you guys for joining me. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. As I always say, go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@99capitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. Go to the website at www.99capitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us on all social media channels at MLB to CFP or 99cap. Also, subscribe to our new Substack. Now what? So, today we have a wonderful guest. We're going beyond the numbers. Financial planning is not just the decimal points, the zeros on the balance sheet, or the numbers in the Excel spreadsheet. It goes far beyond that. And today I got my man Mark Hedderman of Hedderman Financial Solutions. Two CFPs talking shop. We're going beyond the numbers. Mark Hedderman, welcome to the show. Let's get it. I have my man, Mark Hedderman, Hedderman Financial Solutions. Hey, I enjoyed meeting you finally at the Future Proof event recently. It was just a wonder. It was a wonderful experience to meet you, your brother, some of your staff.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys and what you guys are bringing to the table is phenomenal, my man.
Kev, we were chatting about this. As I said, it's amazing for us coming from Ireland, and they're on the first day, and I turn around, you come over, and I get a bear hug from you. So, like, no matter, I mean, what Matt and the guys have built here, like, this is like my biggest takeaway from Future Proof is building such great friendships and relationships with great people like yourself, with Harris Neidick, with having great conversations with Derek Kinney. I mean, like, how unique is this, right? So I'm here in Dublin. We're just chatting about time zones. I'm here on what is bizarrely a sunny day in Ireland, right? You can actually see the shadow behind me here with the sun coming in.
What is that? What's the sun?
What is the sun? Exactly. And you're like, so this is the amazing thing about our profession and the great people that are in it. And like, we're all very, very curious by nature. So it's lovely when we came, we had a great chat. Luke, my younger brother, was with us as well, is obviously in the business, in another CFP. And like, I have to sometimes, one of the best things I did there is I used to go for a walk in the evenings to go for a swim in the sea. And it was actually just decompressing and going, how lucky are we?
Yeah.
What a business.
Yeah.
Like, you think about the content alone is phenomenal. But think about the conversations you and I had over a cup of coffee, or with Jason Ray, or with Seth and Matt Maui, having fantastic conversations out of nothing, like unexpected, total brilliance. There's something very special going on, and we're absolutely so thrilled to be part of this.
And I liked it because, well, not only that, meeting you, of course, but it's the camaraderie. It's there's no like competition. Like, there's no one saying, "Oh, I'm gonna hoard my information from said person because I'm afraid that they're going to take it." Everybody's just a wealth of like, "Hey man, this is what I'm doing. This is what's working. This is what's not working. Tell me what's working for you. Maybe we can collaborate. Matter of fact, let's get on a phone call and talk and hash this out. Maybe we can do a mastermind together."
It's kind of like we've all been there.
Yeah. It's the RIA industry in a nutshell. We're not competitors. Now we're not going to be like the Morgan Stanleys and the Merrill Lynches of the world and all those guys that are like, "Hey, we're not talking to anybody because we're in competition with the next guy." No, man, it's just I loved it, man, and I appreciate what you brought to the table.
Well, look, and same to you, buddy. And as I said to you, you couldn't be more open. And some of you and I were having conversations that, if you told me 3 or 4 years ago we'd be having conversations at that depth over a cup of coffee or a beer, like, you just don't expect it. And I relate this back. Like, if you look at your career, you obviously you come from an MLB background, right?
Yeah.
So I look at our profession as being very the same. Our whole team here are all sports people, right? We played not to the level you played, but we've all been involved in sport. Ireland is a sports mad country.
Yeah.
We try and relate everything back to that, right? So I view this as we coming into the sports room, you coming into the baseball locker room as an apprentice. Are the team going to get better outcomes if the senior player puts the arm around the apprentice and tells them, here's how you go on when you're going out to batting practice, when you're doing this, here's the little nuances, right? Because the senior player knows that the whole team is going to get such a better outcome as a result of that. The difference for us is we're dealing with economies. So if
Hmm.
you and I have a conversation and Harris has a great chat, one of our, I view Harris Nidick as a mentor to me,
Yeah.
and we have a conversation, or we get 10 minutes with Ben Carlson, or Daniel Crosby, the great Irishman Daniel Crosby comes out, we
Yeah.
have a bite of dinner and a bit of sushi and we have a chat. We can go back and deliver that to the broader team, which is our economy here in Ireland, you guys in the US, and
Hmm.
ultimately everyone gets a better outcome. Because the beauty is you can see it's coming out of people's pores. Everyone is trying to get better outcomes for the people that they care about and they work with. And that's it. And we
Yeah.
know that the good comes back to us because as the senior member of the team, that junior gut player goes out and hits a home run. We all benefit.
All
So
win.
like I think it's exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was my so I guess let's just start there. So the Future Proof Festival, like what was one of your main takeaways? I mean, I know we weren't gonna who knows where
Yeah.
this conversation is gonna go because I like the kind we got always pivot. So like what was your main takeaway from the festival?
I think it's the openness and access
Yeah.
to people we would have viewed as everyone whose book is basically behind me on the shelf here. You know,
Yeah.
every single one of these people is there and made available.
Yeah.
And it, I think it's the openness of I've gone to plenty of events over the year, and we're in a business where my parents have worked in this business for years. And I remember my dad used to go to things like MDRT conferences in America.
Hmm.
And this is back pre-mobile phone era where Irish people flying that distance was kind of an unheard of thing. And, you know, he'd say, I saw this great speaker, but they're untouchable. They
Yeah.
get up on stage and then they're gone and they get $15,000 and they disappear. Everyone's rocking around here in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And the beauty for us in a way is, I think the biggest takeaway, yeah, the content is unbelievably good. I mean, we're there looking at another great friend of ours, Samantha Russell, who's up killing it up on stage in the opening session and giving like nuggets of absolute gold.
Yeah.
But then 15 minutes later, she's there chatting to me and you,
Yeah.
and we can, and we're on a human level.
Yeah.
So the biggest element for me is that sense of how strong. It was only our second year,
Hmm.
but how strong the relationships were even coming into the second year. And that was all just off the back of just going up to somebody like I did with the first year with you and saying, look, I really, really enjoyed what yourself and Ryan and Jason's colleague spoke about, Ryan Hughes.
Yeah.
I love that conversation. And we
Yeah.
just had a chat. So, like, not only are we getting the value of what you guys were talking upon on stage, I can then say, you know, Kev, you spoke about something on stage. Can you just go into a little bit more depth?
Mm.
And I'll go and grab the beers. Like it's just unbelievable. It's a dream come true scenario for us, to be honest with you. And that's why even we're chasing Matt down the last day saying, what are the dates? Because we're looking at our flights to basically book them in the minute that they reopen for next year.
Yeah, yeah. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. One thing, and this is one thing I think everybody kind of needs to get out of their own way. And I know you feel it sometimes, right?
Mm,
You'll see somebody on the stage, and you just mentioned this. You'll see somebody on the stage, and you're like, man, they're untouchable. I don't want to bother
yeah.
them. Man, bother them. They don't
Yeah.
care. I mean, I've had like Josh Brown reached out to me. I was like, whoa, where'd this come from? You know, and
Yeah.
now I'm places going, doing things, and then I am no longer afraid, man. Like, hey, I see somebody on CNBC one day, and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach out to this person. The worst thing
Yeah.
they can do is say no, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what we all have to get out of our own way when we feel like people are untouchable, because they're not. Everybody's
Like,
on the same level. No one, there's no hierarchy here, even though we want to put them there.
yeah.
I just think that we break down those barriers, especially at Future Proof, and that's what Matt Middleton has done a wonderful job at, is breaking down those barriers.
I totally agree with you. I'm going to give you a crazy one because I was on stage 2 weeks ago having a
Mhm.
fireside chat with Harris and Phil Nidick
Okay.
in Ireland
Oh
at a
wow.
CFP conference.
So
Yeah.
they flew out there.
They
Nice.
came out to Ireland, spent about 10 days here, had a fantastic holiday, played golf, saw all the scenery. We delivered a bit of good weather for a change, which was
Matter of
nice.
fact, I think they told me that, or they because I talked to him about
Yeah.
a week or two ago, and it's like, yeah, we're doing this. And matter of fact, I think they were just getting back from Ireland. Yeah, so there you go. There you
That's
go.
yeah, and that all came from Stephen Gwinnett from Grow
Mm,
Wealthy. And I'd
mhm.
heard Stephen Gwinnett, a pal of mine here in Ireland, Dermot, who you know obviously from Future Proof as
Yeah,
well. Dermot had sent me a link to Stephen Gwinnett being interviewed by Michael Kitces. And I heard this podcast probably about 2 years ago, and honest to God, it changed my life.
yeah,
And I contacted Stephen directly to just acknowledge her and appreciate what she's doing in the world of financial advisors with our health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, look, I told through the jigs of the reels, I said, I'm going to future proof. And she said, well, I'll put you in contact with Michael Kidsage. You'll have to say hello. And we talked to him and he's blown away. What are these Irish guys doing here? What's the Irish CFP environment like? So we have a chat.
Yeah.
And then ultimately that forwards into then you got to meet Harris. And obviously we meet with Harris. And then next of all, you roll the clock forward a year and Harris and Phil are up on stage. Their two wives are there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Phil's daughter's in the crowd, and there's 100 Irish CFPs there listening, absorbing their knowledge, absorbing the value. And we can be agnostic because this is a global profession. So we
Yes.
can globally move as one because we talked about before, like, yeah, we've different accents and we've different tax codes. But ultimately, our same aim is how do we help the families we work with live the best lives possible? And
Yeah.
that's it, and protect them.
Yeah.
Because like it's very seldom you come across someone in this profession who doesn't deeply care. And we're so attuned to that when we know it, Kev. It's like you get the sense, okay, I know this person is a bit of a, we call them a gouger, a chancer in Ireland,
Yeah.
and we know there's plenty of them, but that we far outweigh them, those people that care. And I think that's the beauty of this thing, and that's why all of a sudden this universe now being open to up to us, even as a small business here in Ireland, we kind of feel it's given us global insights and reach into, well, there are zero limitations on how we can grow and cultivate our business. And
Yeah.
growth for us is not this idea of an AUM number.
Yeah.
Growth is more like how can we go deeper on more meaningful in the existing relationships we have and listening to some of the speakers here and engaging them. Is that going to give us a 1% little advantage over everybody else? And sorry, I don't mean over everyone else. Can we then bring that back to Ireland? And can we help our other CFP colleagues in Ireland gain that other 1 or 2%? Because we want everyone to come on this journey together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I hear two questions about this. So first, I want to go back to like Hedderman Financial Solutions. You said your father started the business. Tell me a little bit about that, about your business, how it was founded, and how,
Yeah.
and your growth a little bit. Just give me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's so my dad effectively initially took what was at the time, if it was a sales role in the Canada
Mm.
Life Assurance Company here in Ireland
Yeah.
back in 1982,
Mm.
and worked at that for an awful long time, and his health suffered very extremely from it. My mum actually came and she was a nurse. She came and joined him in Canada Life to try and help him with admin. He got very bad colitis. He was on the border of getting Crohn's disease
Oh,
purely
really?
through stress. And again, very healthy individual in terms, didn't smoke, didn't drink, had played high level sports himself.
Yeah.
So they decided to set up the business to be totally independent and move away from this kind of culture of delivering sales targets every year.
Oh my God. The hamster wheel. That hamster
The
wheel can
hamster
kill you,
wheel,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You put in a great 1999, well, 2000, you're going to have to start from scratch. So they
Yeah.
kind of moved from this sort of hunter-gatherer mindset to like, we want to tend our own farm and that we
Yeah.
just want to just cultivate that. So they set up the business in 2007, which was an interesting time in Ireland because as you guys know, with the great financial crash, it was like a tsunami coming from New York. It basically nearly wiped us out here in Ireland. We were the
Yeah.
first port of call. So the business started under really, really extremely difficult circumstances.
Mm.
And it was just my mum and dad. They were just like living hand to mouth really with the business, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I traveled a little bit. I'd studied, I went to university in France and I'd lived in Australia and spent a little bit of time in the States and arrived home from America, funnily enough, in 2011. And albeit I'd multiple qualifications, I couldn't get a job. That's how bad the economy here was in
Yeah.
2011. So they offered me to come in for a very short period of time and just, tip away and learn the ropes and see how things went. And they actually both took a pay cut in their salaries of 500
Mm.
euros a month each to give me basically what was an apprenticeship salary of 12,000 euros a year in
Okay.
2011. So that kind of continued. I did all of my various exams and we started like all of a sudden I felt my dad had been one of the first CFPs qualified in Ireland. And the difficulty for
Wow.
him was he struggled. Yeah, it was 2007, 2008 when it was introduced into Ireland.
Okay.
Our chief executive of the LAA, our education body, God rest him, Brendan Glennon, who only passed away in the last month or two,
Wow.
went to the global CFP board and made a real strong case for Ireland to get the CFP qualification because he could
Well,
see
so
the
so
might.
let's back up. Like why was it
Yeah,
not like so what took it so long to get there?
they just felt we weren't qualified enough. They felt that we would bring the overall global standard down. So Brendan in his
What? Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
because up until then we wouldn't have had really the same education structure. There was very limited levels of
Okay.
education. It was a sales role primarily, and therefore you didn't really need to know
Yeah.
stuff. You just need to know how to sell stuff.
Yeah.
So Brendan, in his wisdom, tied it in. He went back to the global CFP board and said, "Look, what we'll do is, if you want us to bring this, if we can get the CFP, we will bolt on a level 9 master's degree with University College of Dublin, which is about 20 minutes up the road, one of our principal universities in Ireland."
Okay.
So he basically said, the global standard is there. You view Ireland as being here. We're going to leapfrog it and go to there. So all of a sudden, he brought in an education standard that my dad was, funny enough, he was president at the time of the education body, the body that I'm now president of, which is
Mhm.
bizarre, father and son both being presidents of the same group.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the level went from there. They went from minor league to major league baseball overnight, is probably the best
Okay.
way to put it. So
Yeah.
we've roughly about 1,000 CFPs now in Ireland, and they are
Wow.
really highly educated, really well qualified, and for the better part are all trying to move the needle forward. So within our own business, it was a prerequisite when I joined. And one thing my dad said to me is like, we have an education pathway that we embrace lifelong learning. So
Hmm.
there was never a point where you get to a stage you said, I'm now stopping. So I did all my basic financial advisor exams and then did the CFP course myself in 2016. And I think that was really the turning point for us as a business, roughly about 9 years ago, where when we had the CFP qualification, say we need to take a really, really hard look
Hmm.
at where the business is going to go because we need to work out now what comes next and how do we want to remodel this business for the future because we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're fit for purpose and we want this to be a generational business. We want this to last 20, 30, 40 years.
So right there, CFP comes in. Tell me a little bit about the regulatory bodies, the differences between what you've seen here in the United States. 'Cause I know you came here and you're like, oh, you guys can do this, that, and the other. This is pretty
Yeah,
free flowing over here. It's like the Wild
it's
West.
yeah.
Versus like what are some of the I guess the barriers to entry for you guys there in Ireland?
Yeah, it's incredibly restrictive, and a lot of this relates back to the crash. Essentially,
Okay.
we were effectively Wild West style regulation going on here, and
Okay.
I would argue we've probably over-regulated the market. So we not only deal with Irish regulation, but we deal with European Union regulatory legislation as
Gotcha.
well. And one of the rationales from a European level is they're trying to make us maybe look more like the United States whereby there can be some movement and transfer of financial services because it's very limited at the moment. So
Hmm.
I would argue, and it's funny, I had a conversation with a couple of our US colleagues, obviously at Future Proof, and we explained to them like A, what our investment tax base looks like, and
Hmm.
B, what the regulatory requirements are to be in business from a professional indemnity standpoint, from a qualification and a CPD standpoint. Like people are falling out of their chairs going, like, how do you guys actually transact business?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, it's with great difficulty because not only is the regulatory environment very tough here, but it's very tough dealing with consumers because they don't really recognize financial planning as a profession. And
Yeah.
one of the rationales for that is we don't have any historical wealth within Ireland. So people can't go back generationally and say, hey, my grandparents had their advisor because there was no such thing. I'm blown away by in the US. Clients shout from their rooftop, I work with Kev, I work with
Mm.
Harris. Like I have an advisor. Here they kind of whisper that they don't want anyone to know. And
Yeah.
it's mostly because speaking about money and the treatment of money in Ireland is a very, very touchy subject matter on the
Yeah.
basis that I only have to go back to my grandparents where they grew up and lived in very, very extreme, difficult
Yeah.
circumstances. Ireland of the 1950s and 60s was an economic basket case, you know?
Th- Ireland, so you and I can relate to this. I mean, I don't go to the historical context of this, but
Yeah.
whether it's the 1900s or the 1910s, where they brought poor Irish people in for the factories, right, or
Hmm.
poor blacks in to do all these things, and
Yeah.
it's just and what I've always said was from a minority perspective, because you would be considered a minority, not in today's world in the
I
United
know,
States, but
but
back in the
yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
So, getting things like the CFP, getting degrees, getting it matters more because there's fewer
Yeah.
of us, and and they're just like the hurdles just a little bit higher for us, right? So
Yeah.
so the people that are in those roles, like yourself, like myself, we have a tendency to take the designation a bit more seriously than others. I'm not saying all the
Yeah.
time, but I'm just saying in most cases because we know what it means. So like you just mentioned, like, oh, like we put all these standards and what it means to be a CFP in Ireland. And that's like I could imagine like you guys are probably top notch because
Yeah.
it's just the standards that you put on yourselves because you just feel like you have to do it. And I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like culturally,
It's a cultural thing
culture,
for sure.
yeah, and we've probably come from a tough space. Like we're the only country in Europe, and again, not to go too historical, but we're the only country in Europe whose population is lower now than it was in the 1840s. So we had a
Yeah.
devastating famine in Ireland. Over
Yeah.
1 million people died and 1 million plus emigrated, hence why there's such a strong diaspora of Irish people across the world. I mean, there was roughly on the island of Ireland, we've 6.5 million people, but there's 45 million people globally who can
Hmm.
trace their heritage to Ireland. So in one sense, like it's amazing going to a place like Future Proof and a great chat with a buddy of mine in New Jersey, Dylan O'Shea. I was chatting to him about like we're incredibly proud when we see, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th generation Irish Americans
Hmm.
making good for themselves and getting on. And sometimes for us as a small country, we got to pull that back in and say, like, we're as good as anybody else here.
Yeah.
Like, and we can stand on our own 2 feet, but at the same time, we've also come through this model of a boom bust scenario across the state. And I think where the role of the CFP is becoming so important is almost being at the vanguard of protecting families from
Hmm.
that happening again. Because ultimately, the only time where we run into these really, really very difficult recessionary times is when people just go totally run loose with their finances and they
Hmm.
overextend themselves. And they do things that if they had the angel on the shoulder rather than just the devil telling them what to do, that they would rethink it. So I think we have a really, really strong responsibility, particularly in Ireland, such a small country, very heavily exposed to the US multinational sector.
Yeah.
And we'd have grave concerns, obviously, that we've been very fortunate that within Ireland, US companies have been incredibly good to us on the
Yeah.
basis that the corporation tax levels here are very low. But that there's no guarantee on that, Kev. And
Yeah.
like, so we need to keep an eye on this. And that means as a result, we need to be building resources and defenses in every single family that we speak to ensure that if we get this next tsunami that comes through, that like they've already provisioned and set themselves up, that's not as bad as the last one. Yes, there will be damage, but the kicker really for us now is, are we survivable? And
Yeah.
that's why the responsibility, I totally get you. I think culturally with this, you tend to wear that a little bit stronger and take it that bit more serious because we also are totally aware of the responsibility that lays at our feet now relative to where our communities have come from.
Yeah. Eh, So I know you mentioned earlier Australia. You're headed to
Yeah.
Australia. So you do a lot of things like, you do a lot of engagements and you're on stages and stuff. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on in Australia for you and your firm.
Yeah, so what I've done is I'm flying out actually on Monday out to Perth, out to Western Australia,
Yeah.
and I'm involved with the FAAA Congress in Perth. So they run their annual Congress, which is I suppose the Australian equivalent of Future Proof,
Yeah.
or our equivalent here of the Financial Planners of Ireland annual conference. And I'm speaking at the CFP Connect session with a US based academic, a guy called
Okay.
Dr. Chet Bennett.
Okay.
And what I've been trying to do over the last couple of years, like as you and I know it, like I suppose what we've been trying to do is be so passionate and engaged within the profession. Sometimes the waterline here is a little bit lower in Ireland because it's a quite a restricted community. So what
Hmm.
I try to do is expand and get out to the UK and South Africa, Canada, America, Australia, and get out and talk to people. And maybe there's a hint of imposter syndrome on this thing, Kevin, because I always felt like I've never really seen any Irish people up on these stages talking about the environment in Ireland and talking about things like global collaboration.
Yeah.
So what I've been trying to do is push. I was fortunate enough to speak in Cape Town in South Africa a couple of years ago, and obviously speaking at a number of events in Ireland. But the idea was to get out and engage with the CFP community now in Australia and form new links and bonds there, and maybe bring some ideas to the table that they haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
So the main subject matter I'm talking about is how we craft successful succession plans within our smaller RIA firms.
Hmm.
So how do we bring in the next generation? I actually open with the idea of I'm going to ask people in the room what did they dream they wanted to be when they grew up and finished school. And I bet you bar none, nobody, if I say hands up who here who wanted to be a financial planner, like no one's going to put their
No one's
hand,
gonna
right?
raise their hand for
Yeah, they
that.
wanted to be athletes and doctors and
Yeah.
soldiers and whatever.
Yeah.
But what I want to finish on is this idea of it's incumbent on this to ensure that the next generation coming through, that they're standing up and saying, yeah, I can see the value and the care that goes into that. That's a profession I want to be involved in. So I
Mhm.
want to talk about that around succession planning and how we've crafted that within our own business, being a second generation family business, and how our newer, younger members of staff, we have to be very conscious that, albeit they're not Heddermans and they're not ultimately at the moment shareholders, they need to
Mhm.
share on this journey. They need to share the wins. So we
Yeah.
have that, and then talking about things like multi-currency lifestyles for our clients. So can we go deeper and can we go beyond just the numbers and the finances? So can we look at the other types of wealth that exist? That's social currency. Can we look at health and well-being? Can we look at that spiritual element, that inner sense around the mental well-being? Can we get people through their retirement years and things like loneliness and depression and anxiety are massive, massive impacts that are massive issues that are occurring for people, albeit they've more money than sense. So how can we as financial planners kind of help them evolve? And the last bit I'm going to touch upon is actually health and well-being specific for us as a profession.
Yeah.
Stephen Gwinnett, our friend, speaks very eloquently about this, how we spend all this time, the trade-off curve of building your business. And I love your numbers during the week, like the way you're tracking your numbers quarter by
Yeah.
quarter is
Gotta
brilliant.
track your numbers. Gotta track your
And
numbers,
now
man.
you're ticking all the boxes because you're doing the Monday morning minute. You're out walking, you're tracking the
But
numbers.
so
So
I'm gonna say this, like
yeah,
every time that so someone said that I was reading a book and they were saying life is nothing but a mirror. And I think it may have been James Baldwin. He says every time we talk, we're talking about ourselves. We're just a mirror. And
yeah.
when you say something, when you're having a conversation, you're typically talking about your own issues, and it's
Yeah,
not on anyone else's issues. So yeah, and that's why I do it because like it's truly just a mirror of me having a conversation with myself.
yeah, and you've saved yourself the psychiatrist's fee as
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
like, but you can see this, the stuff that we're talking about here, the stuff we talked about at Future Proof, the
Yeah.
stuff we're going to deliver in Australia, like this is globally portable.
Yes.
So the aspirations for this, and look, I'm not trying to be some kind of keynote and on all these stages in the world, but I always felt
Why
like I
not?
felt
Why
well,
not?
maybe
I mean, but if that's not your goal, I understand. But yeah.
yeah, I suppose it's probably an Irish thing. We always talk ourselves down, but then secretly we're like, yeah, I do want to do that. Yeah, but I'll talk myself
Exactly.
down. Yeah,
Exactly.
keep talking
You're a
myself down.
mirror. You're a mirror.
Yeah, but what I'm probably trying to get at is more, I feel within our own business.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to say, how do we keep pushing and pushing and pushing? Where can we set other challenges? I had a great chat with Derek Kinney actually about this at Future Proof.
Yeah.
How can we set new challenges for ourselves that sharpens the axe within our professional lives? So I thought to myself, if I'm going to get up on stage in front of a group of Australian CFPs, and in my mind, the Australian CFP community is the pinnacle of financial professionals globally. So if
Mhm.
I'm going to get up in front of them, man, I got to be on my game. I got to be practicing. I got to know my stuff and I have to deliver value for them. And I got to deliver value for them on subject matter that maybe they haven't given consideration to.
Mhm.
Maybe we need to come at this from a slightly different angle with a slightly different accent. As I said to them when we were having the pitch talk, there might be no harm in not having all Australian accents on stage. And they're like, actually, that's not a bad idea. It's one of the things you and I talked about, even about future proof. Maybe there's no harm in having a couple of different accents on the stage. I know we've Jason Pereira and others of the Canadian community and stuff coming up, but maybe somebody who's not from North America coming up and saying, by the way, guys, there's a bigger world out here. And there's a couple of things, although we're minnows, that we're doing that maybe you guys haven't seen in your own market that might help your engagement with your clients.
Well, I want to say something to you because I think it's important, and you can take it or not. It's no big deal.
Okay.
You said
Okay.
you gotta practice. You gotta practice. And how I practice is just by doing what I do every single day. Like some people see practicing as this, okay, I'm gonna practice this speech. I'm gonna get this, and I'm gonna say it 1,000 times, and I'm gonna have it boilerplated. But you know how and again, you don't have to do that, but you can if that's how you learn your thing. For me,
Yeah.
how I practice is by doing.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm reading books. Like right now, somebody gave me this book about prisoners of geography, so I'm trying to
Oh,
read that.
I,
And
I, Yeah,
Yeah.
hold on. I have it here. It's on the back. Tim Marshall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm reading that. So I'm constantly reading, constantly learning, and that's how I'm practicing. I'm not necessarily
yeah,
practicing okay, I'm going to go on the stage and say this. No, I'm practicing every day because all the information I'm taking in, I'm going to get to that stage and I'm going to try to put that information into bite-sized pieces
yeah,
and deliver that. Now, however it comes out, it comes out. That's, me.
yeah,
I'm like, hey, this is just going to come out. And it's all based on where
yeah.
my emotions are that day. But hey, it is what it is.
But you've hit the nail on the head. And I think most of us with the sporting piece here is
Yeah.
probably the definition of this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when you came through from the sporting side, yes, you're practicing, but it's dynamic practicing,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you knew when you get up on that plate
Yeah. I don't
and
want to
there's
think
a
about it. I just
yeah,
want to,
the
yeah.
picture is there, and you're trying to work out in my mind. There's about eight, and I'm terrible at baseball, so excuse my
Me,
analogies,
me
but
too, apparently.
yeah, okay. Well, you're probably thinking there's probably 9 to 12 different combinations that this guy can throw at me,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
you can't practice something by rote to then read it back verbatim.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to get the muscles in such a position that irrespective of whatever combination of pitch I receive, fastball, curveball, that's the extent. I don't know anymore. But
Yeah.
like, let's say it's a fastball, you don't even need to think.
Just react. It's all about
React.
reaction. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of how you delivered that piece and
Mm.
how your forms of content go and why it's so easy to embrace that even at Future Proof. The conversation is like riveting to listen to
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're right, we don't know where it's going to go, but like it's real world, it's human,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because what do we don't know where our clients' lives are going to go. We
No, we
map out
don't.
a game plan. There were no straight lines from this point to retirement. And by the way, you got there straight line. There's going to be wins, losses, there's going to be disasters, there's going to be triumphs. But this is the beauty of this thing.
You just said something there, and this is one thing that a lot of CFPs in our world do. The ones from the brokerage houses, the wire houses.
Yeah,
I'll get a statement. I'll get someone's portfolio or their financial plan, and it's straight like linear. It's like, hey, you're gonna get 7% year over year over year. You're gonna have $15 billion of retirement assets. Everything's gonna work out well. And I remember one of my clients, because I got him from JP Morgan, and
yeah,
they were like, hey, I got this. Can you look over this for me? I said, sure. And I looked over. I said, wow, they got you making. Yeah, we have about $5 or $6 million left over. I said, let me show you what the reality is. I said, it's somewhere between this and this, but this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the average 20% lowest returns just as a
yeah,
reference point. And then
yeah,
boom, oh, it just cost us $3 million. Well, hey, this is somewhere in between this reality we're going to be in,
yeah,
based on distributions and things like that. It's those things because a lot of the younger CFPs don't know that. They're just like, okay, I'm going to push this button. I'm going to use the default uh, inflation rate of 2.3%,
yeah,
2.38%. It's like, no, retiree, guess what? Their inflation rate on their healthcare is almost 11%. You got to know
yeah.
these types of things because these things matter. I don't know. I
No, you're
digress.
right. I like life. I think we probably try and box up and compartmentalize that life is going to go from A to B to C to D. And like
Yeah.
anyone will tell you that that's not the case. And I think, again, not to call it back to sports too much, but people have a choice with this, right? And
Hmm.
if I look at it from a golf perspective, and we look at Rory McIlroy,
Yeah.
right, in the Masters, and Rory has it in the bag, and he ends up having to take it to the playoff holes.
Yeah.
You know, and he's coming down, and Harry Diamond, his caddy, turns around to him as they're about to start again on the first, and says, "What you need to focus on now is on Thursday of last week, we would have been absolutely delighted if we were in this position today." He said,
Wow.
"You've got
Yeah.
to focus," or something to that measure, right?
Yeah.
So our role essentially, if we use that golf analogy, and obviously Roy went on and won it, and amazing, that the Grand Slam, an Irishman to do it again. It's just like for us, you're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's only about a dozen of us. This is
Yeah.
class. So where the beauty is with this is it's the very same in people's lives because you can sometimes overwhelm yourself with negativity. I worry about you guys in the States, to be honest,
Mhm.
because in Europe, maybe not so much in Ireland, but the rest of Europe, it's like it's very chill. They're living great standards of living. And
Yeah,
I worry coming over because even when we're in the States for the week or so there, we can't get away from like CNN, MSNBC, Fox, Newsmax,
dude, it's an
24 hours a
absolute,
day.
it's terrible, man.
It's
And I
not
tell
good.
people, I said, you got to turn the TV off. You got to turn
Yeah.
the TV off because they're trying to engage you. That's how they make money and the algorithm. And by the way, I know this is a little bit off topic, but actually it's
No,
not off topic because this is probably what we
it's
need to be talking about is
yeah.
that the money, it's capitalism. And I'm a
Yeah.
capitalist. I get it. But capitalism will eat itself alive if allowed to continue to
Yeah.
go down this path because the money is going to go to where the eyeballs are. And if you see a train wreck, people will put ads around that train wreck and
Yeah.
you'll consistently be filled with a bunch of train wrecks. And then people's just psyche just gets melted away.
Well, we
And
know
but
we
the big
know
companies make trillions of dollars. There you
I
go.
know. And we know how damaging smoking is, right? But for a long time, people smoked away and they thought it was good for their health. So we
Well, I
kind
smoke
of know
cigars
now.
every now and then. It's okay.
Yeah, but that's okay. I did the same. I was in Portugal last weekend. I did the same thing. That's all right, you know. But a bit of a golfing trip, but it has to be done. But
Yeah.
the kicker on this thing really is that there's psychological and mental damage that's being done
Yes.
and building up a significant liability. Now, this is not dissimilar to what we spoke about with Rory there. Rory got up on the first going, I should have had this one already. And
Yeah.
Harry is there to remind him. We are in an incredibly good position. So did he lift his game from there, off the back of Harry's statement to there? More than likely, maybe Harry had a greater influence on Rory going out and winning his
Hmm.
Masters, having blown up so many in the past. A quiet
Yeah.
word in the ear. That's what we are. Someone spots something on the television that upsets them because 99% of what they see on television cause upset. It's designed,
Yes.
as you said, it's designed to do it.
Yes.
Now, imagine you have access to your personal caddy, your personal CFP,
Wow.
who can say, all you got to do is get up, put your eye on the ball. You know you want that down the middle of the fairway, and all is
Mm.
going to be good. And that's the beauty of what we're delivering here. And I think that's why there's such a value on our profession at the moment and why we really need to be shouting it from the rooftops is there's not many other people who hold families' hands through the most difficult points in their lives and do that willingly and do that understanding their circumstances and understanding who they are as human beings. Because yes, we can go very broad and we can make lots of money and deal with thousands. You talk with the wirehouse and the broker dealers, they
Hmm.
might deal with hundreds and thousands of clients. And we're like, we can't build relationships with hundreds and thousands of
No.
people. We can't do it. Like, and ultimately, we are really, really keen. Our growth metric is building relationships
Hmm.
and ensuring that no matter what we do or say, that those people are going away going, we know we're in good hands, and our next generation coming through is going to be in even better hands. That's why I think like we're probably at the infancy stages of a really, really big change in how our profession looks. I know everyone's talking about AI, but I actually feel it's human connection is going to be the difference maker.
Thousand percent.
If we don't double down now on extolling the values and virtues of how much we care for others, this has been a waste of time. Because I
I was
know for us as a family business, we're not interested in anything else.
I was on a call this week, and we were talking about this very thing and about relationships and what it actually means. I said a majority of my calls these days are very rarely about a portfolio
Yeah.
or a financial plan. It's about, hey, this is what's going on with my mother, and we got to figure
Mm,
out how I'm gonna, this is what's going on with my kids.
yeah.
I have this type of thing. I have a lawsuit pending here, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
It's very rarely about. It's financially related, but
Yeah.
it's never about what we think it's going to be about their portfolio. Nine, if I get nine calls, if I get 10 calls today, nine of them are going to be about something outside of
Yeah.
what we have to do,
Yeah. I
and
know. And
it's bigger than that for sure.
here's the kicker. Like, unlike accountants or legal experts, for example, like you can be trained on this stuff and go back through those A, B, C, Ds.
Hmm.
You can't, like, irrespective of the fact that we're CFPs, we've master's degrees, whatever, you can't train someone to go out and sit at a kitchen table where there was two people 2 weeks ago, now there's one.
Yeah.
Like, so are we priests? Are we psychologists? Are we the caddy? So
Mm.
we gotta be constantly pivoting. And that's what you're right about the learning piece here on about reading. As most of what we're really doing now is pushing into that behavioral finance, behavioral psychology space, of which
Yes.
guys like Daniel and Morgan have really led the charge in this space
Yeah.
in terms of driving it through. We need to shift the narrative from 80% financial to probably 20% financial.
Yeah.
And the rest is that cultural, social, even down to the physical element. So we ran an event for our retiree clients in June, and we had a number of speakers in talking about estate planning, tax planning in Ireland, opening up that conversation with the next generation as their kids come through. But our closing speaker came in to talk about what we describe as our new season in life, which is retirement.
Yeah.
And again, first generation in Ireland who've retired with money, which comes with its own problems because they can't relate back to doing this before. But what most people have overlooked is they're probably going to have 25 or 30 years of retirement. So how are they going to spend it? And how can they live as well as possible without worries? And maybe live to a point where they get a lot more active years out of this than they expected to. Because for the most part, I think people assume, geez, I'm going to retire and go downhill pretty quickly. And we're like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Our role here is to help you keep pushing on this thing, keep exploring, stay curious, go and do another degree. Go and do, coming back to the conversation I'm going to have with the Australian advisors. What did you dream of doing in school that didn't quite work out? And why not go back and do it now? Like, how
It,
bad is that? And what, like, that's a magical conversation to have.
it's funny you mentioned that because I just had this conversation about we've done a great job planning to retirement, like to get there. But a lot of us have done a poor job planning for retirement. Like, what does tomorrow look like for you?
Mm,
Like, literally, and I can't tell you the majority of my clients, they're fine for retirement. They have money and all the other stuff,
yeah,
plenty of assets coming, whatever. They're going to be fine.
they're good. Yeah.
But some of them don't want to retire because they're afraid of what it looks like. They don't know what tomorrow is. They don't know they've been doing this for 40 years,
Yeah.
right? 30, 40 years. It's like, okay, if I stop, now what do I do? And
Yeah.
like I said, it's like the Shawshank Redemption thing. Like the guy in Shawshank, you
Yeah.
let him out of prison, and now he can't cope with the real
You
world. So he
can't
wants to
cope.
go either wants to go back to prison or he,
Yeah. You,
God forbid,
you, you've hit on a great point. And actually, one of the reasons I'm going out to Australia, my wife and my two sons are coming.
yeah,
And on a personal note, one of the rationales of doing this, we're going for 3.5 weeks. We family living in Western Australia is I need to reacquaint myself with my two sons.
hmm
I like bar coming home. I coach the various soccer teams and their hurling teams here, Irish sports. So I run out of the office to collect them, and I'm like a hurricane running the door because I'm generally late,
hmm
and I'm like, we gotta go. We gotta be first or second there. I'm coaching. So I had to rationalize in my mind is their experience with me flying out the door in the morning to get to the gym or something and getting them to have their breakfast and get out the door to school. And then I fly home in the evening. So my engagements with them are frantic all the time. And I'm working with a coach on this in Ireland who's been phenomenal. So even with us as financial planners, engaging my own coach to come in and say, where am I taking missteps? And I really, really panicked on this thing and said,
yeah,
like, my two sons, I don't want them to grow up to not want to spend time with me. And I
hmm
don't want to put them in a position where they feel uncomfortable in my surroundings, which means I owe it to them to actually relearn who they are as a five. Rory is five and Shay is eight.
yeah,
So I have to reacquaint myself with them and almost allow them to see a different side of me as we tour around beaches in Australia. And if the phone gets switched off for 2 or 3 weeks for the first time in 15 years, like how
so
bad
be
is
it.
that?
So
Because as you're
be it.
saying there, what am I have to look, we're helping so many people retire, Kev, on this. What are we doing for ourselves?
Yeah,
And I had a great conversation. It's a great credit to Derek Notman and Adam Holt, who had a super conversation with around this very area. They run a great group called Rebel Dads. I had a
yeah,
conversation is what are we doing outside of our work life that distinguishes who we are as parents and who distinguishes us as husbands and friends and sons and brothers. I think it's great. People laud over in our business very, very successful individuals based on revenue and AUM and client size. Why aren't we measuring this on other things like actual the social side? Are they good friends? Are they good fathers? And I think that's why one of the reasons I'm looking at this now and I really gonna be working hard at the next stage is how do I get back to a position with my two boys where they say, look, this is a this is a guy we actually want to spend time with because he's not wrecking our head all the time running around and not
Well,
really understanding us.
so you'll know the difference. The United the American side of things. Like we've been ingrained to believe in the Gordon Geckos
Yeah,
and these guys that are like
the Jack
industry
Welch.
titans. We must destroy our enemies, and
Yeah,
it's just fantasy, and that's not true life. That's not real life, but that's the movies and the caricatures that are placed on all these different on us in the financial industry, which is
it's
wrong.
it's amazing. I'm reading two books at the moment, both by David Gelles. One is on Jack Welch, obviously he was the chief executive of GE, and another an Irish American guy, but wore his Irishness too strong in the sense that he tried to get everybody and obviously ultimately destroyed that company and maybe
Yeah,
has
yeah,
had a very detrimental impact on where this lies in America. And the
yeah.
flip side is the other book is on the I think it's called The Enemy of Capitalism, which is on Yvon Chouinard, the
Mm.
chief exec of Patagonia company and what Patagonia did. And I feel if I was to look at this as CEO of our own family business, do I want to be more Jack Welch or do I want to be more Yvon Chouinard?
Hmm.
And I definitely want to be skirting more on the side of the Patagonia piece with Yvon Chouinard, who's living, still living a really good life, helping his community, giving back. And albeit he became a billionaire, he's still a dirtbag surfer. He's still a dirtbag rock climber. He never
Yeah,
changed who he was relative. And like, isn't that probably the greatest testimony to any of us,
because
irrespective of our success?
the money doesn't matter. I mean, yes, it matters. It gives you freedoms, but at the end of the day, it's just hey, it's just money. I want to leave a legacy far beyond than what I was born with. Like my legacy
Yeah.
is much bigger than where I started. And that's exactly what I want. And here's my last question for you, my man. By the way, this is great. You're
Yeah,
phenomenal.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me
Mark,
on.
Mark Hedderman, Hedderman Financial Solutions, CFP, my man from Ireland. If you could go back, say 10, 15, 20 years and tell your younger self something before or your younger self that's entering in the business, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell your younger self?
Good. I was going to say don't do it, but that'd be a lie. Jeez, I'd be in trouble if I hadn't done it.
maybe,
I'd be
maybe,
over
maybe
the
play to try that soccer league one more time.
I would have been over changing the bins at Future Proof in America, probably. That would have been it. But yeah, look, I think the biggest thing I would have said is probably, be comfortable with who you are,
Mhm.
and rationalize that you're enough.
There you go.
And one of the reasons probably why that's been so prevalent, I think it is maybe an Irish thing, but it's most definitely a family thing for us because I don't think we held ourselves very high relative to the fact like we're constantly trying to adapt and improve and get better. And sometimes, Kev, that can be very detrimental to your own well-being. So it would
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
be, you are enough and you need to be comfortable with that fact. And if some people don't like that, that's okay.
Hmm.
Not out there to turn everybody over to our way of thinking, and that's
100%.
that's okay as well. So I simply put, I think, yeah, that's how I'd put it.
Love it, man. Love it, my man. I appreciate that. That's powerful. This has been a powerful conversation. I love to learn about your company. I learn about you a little bit in regards to like what you stand for, some of the things that you want to be better at. I need to be a better father as well. I have to admit that. I mean, my son's special needs, and again, I do the
Okay.
best I can, but I could be better. I know I could be better. We all could be better in what we do. But one thing I'll say is this, and this is, I guess, it's just my epiphany.
Yeah.
Let's not be so hard on ourselves. Because
Mm.
if it's not something about, oh, I need to be more present or this, that, and the other, it's going to be something else. Then we're going to find something else. Then we're going to, so it's always
Yeah.
going to be something. And of course, we're always growing, right? But I think we're all doing a pretty good job, to be honest with you,
This
man.
it's more we got to treat it more like art than science, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is an evolving tapestry. And with science, we're constantly trying to get that outcome. Okay, I'll solve this. I solve the next problem. You're right. We got to just be okay with being okay. None of us are
Oh,
perfect. You
be
know,
okay with being okay and stop running to these fictions that exist out here, especially in this. You gotta go get it. You gotta grow at all costs. No, you
yeah.
don't.
Well, that's why I
No.
love the direction of travel you're coming at is so refreshing because we
Yeah.
see that ourselves as a smaller business looking at this going, okay, there are other people out here sharing the same sentiment. They care about what they do and they care about the people that they're working with, but they're also conscious is there's only so much of me that can go around. So I got to go deep with those that I really care about, as opposed to being very thin surfaced with hundreds and thousands of people. It just doesn't work. And we really appreciate what you're doing, Kev. I think it's fantastic. And again, I hope this is something we can carry forward. I think you and I should be up on that stage maybe next year having a deeper chat about this, maybe in California on the beach,
Hey
maybe
man,
before we
if I
have a
get
few
invited
beers.
back, I should be invited back. But if I get invited back
Yeah.
again, you'll be the first to call on my list, my man.
A1. Well, listen, it's great to chat.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Mark Hedderman, Hedderman Financial Solutions. Thank you for joining the 90s podcast today, my friend.
My pleasure. Thanks again, Kev.
We just had Mark Hedderman of Hedderman Financial Solutions on the show. We talked a little bit beyond the numbers because financial planning goes far beyond that. We talked about the Future Proof Festival, which was a wonderful event. Had a great opportunity to meet some great individuals, share some ideas, and grow our practices together. And as you know, in this business, we're not in competition with one another. We are all growing together. And that's the beauty of this business. Thank you, Mark, for joining us, talking in depth about financial planning, the what you guys are going through in Ireland, and also what's going on around the world, and the things that you're putting in place, which are very, very valuable, man. It's a great talk and a great opportunity to just have a different viewpoint. And I appreciate the time today. As you know, subscribe to the channel. Go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@ninecapitalgroup.com. Send us your question. Go to the website at www.ninecapitalgroup.com. Schedule your appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us on all social media channels at 99cap or at MLB to CFP. Subscribe to our new Substack, Now What? Thank you guys for listening. I love every one of you. We're doing this together. Today we talked about beyond the numbers, because financial planning goes deeper than just the numbers on the balance sheet. Thank you guys for listening. Stay humble, stay safe, my friends. I'll see you again soon.